Have they?
I'm going to have a gin and tonic. Would you like one?
I don't drink.
Are you a widow too, Mrs. Cullen?
Shouldn't be living in someone else's house if I had a home of my own. I've never been married.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I thought you said Mrs. And I see you wear a wedding ring.
I call myself Mrs. and wear a ring because it's the only way I know to stop men bothering me.
What do men do when they bother you, Mrs. Cullen?
Well, now, you're a married woman, and I'm sure I don't have to tell you what men like to do to women. Leaning on them and all that.
Do you have much trouble like that?
There are books published for people like you who want to know those sort of details.
I've come to see you again. I'm sorry now that I came. I realize you don't want me here. Neither does Mrs. Cullen. Or Harry. Or Margaret. It was a big mistake. It did seem like a good idea. You see, my parents died. And then George, my husband. And there was no one close anymore. I felt lost. And I wanted to find you. You're my last bit of family. Well, you and Harry. Oh, Aunt Em. Please, will you speak to me? I did love George. And I miss him very much. You must understand that, Aunt Em. You're a widow, too. I know it was a long time ago, but I'm sure you remember, don't you? George was never a great lover or anything like that. In fact, he was clumsy. He always did the same things in the same order. He used to get me too far up the bed and ended up by banging my head against the wall. Bump, bump. Bump. But he was such a very nice man. Why don't we give my aunt an egg for her breakfast?
Eggs make you liverish.
Oh, One wouldn't hurt.
I might give her an egg for a tea. I'll see how she is. If the food makes her sick, it's me who's got to clear it up.
I'm sorry if I sound critical. It's probably ignorance on my part. But it doesn't really seem to me that she eats enough.
All people can't eat what you and I eat. Their insides don't work properly. They're like babies.
But my aunt isn't a baby. And if there isn't anything actually wrong with her, I don't see why she should suddenly stop eating proper food.
Are you saying I don't look after her properly? Are you saying I don't look after her like I did my own mother?
Oh, I'm sure you mean well. But why didn't you give her some of that stew yesterday, for instance? See what she made of it.
She can't eat it, that's why.
How do you know?
Because of her teeth.
What's wrong with her teeth?
She's 85. They're false. My gums have shrunk. They don't fit. They slip about. She can't chew.
Then why doesn't she get them adjusted? No, my husband
How do you think she's going to go to the dentist? She can only get on the commode with help.
The dentist could come to her.
You think the dentist is going to hire a van and drive his whole surgery into the bedroom?
Don't be silly.
Any impatient you and your sort do this, do that. You don't have to do any of it, do you?
The best train for my connection leaves at 3, so I should like to have some lunch here, if it's all right with you.
Very well.
I just popped in to say goodbye to you, Aunt Em. There's a lovely smell coming from the kitchen. Mrs. Cullen, why don't we chop up some of that gammon very fine?
Don't start that again.
Don't speak to me like that.
I run this house and I'll speak in it how I choose. Now eat some of that. Mrs. Gray, dear. Don't expect me to stay here after that. Goodbye.
Sorry.
Now, madam, what exactly do you think you're up to? My poor Margaret's in a state of collapse. I've had to leave Jill with her, which is hardly conducive to the child getting good O-levels. And as for poor Mrs. Cullen, well, she was in a dreadful state when she phoned. Now, she was absolutely devoted to my mother, devoted to her. And now she's had to go and stay with her brother who drinks.
I'm sorry.
Hardly enough when you created havoc and behaved like a mad woman.
I'm not a mad woman. And I would like to make it clear that I will stay here and take care of my aunt for as long as necessary.
And what qualifications do you have for nursing a frail old lady, I'd like to know?
Time and common sense.
Oh, time. Time, is it? That's why you're here. That's what this is all about. You're bored with being a widow, so you moved in on a helpless old woman.
But if you'd seen the slop that Mrs. Cullen was feeding your mother, if you'd smelt the dinner she was cooking for herself... Why don't you speak to your mother and see what she has to say?
Oh, very funny. Very funny. Yes, I can have a long conversation with her about it, can't I?
She can speak, I'm sure of it. And she can certainly eat something besides slops. She had some gammon today for lunch.
Yes, yes. Well, I don't know what in the world I'm going to do if I can't pacify Mrs. Cullen.
I've brought some tea.
How long could you stay?
As long as necessary.
Yes, well, if I can't persuade Mrs. Cullen, I'll have to advertise.
Yes.
Thank you. I'll have to go now, Mother, but Cousin Etta's going to look after you for a little while. But we'll be here on Saturday as usual. All right?
Aren't you staying for tea?
No tea. All the necessary numbers are in a book by the telephone. Ours, the doctor's, and... Yes, all right.
Never mind, Aunt Em. I'll have tea with you.
You don't look like Helen.
No, I take after my father. But I am Helen's daughter and your niece. Are you just a little bit pleased to see me? Oh, of course. Oh, I'm sorry. Aunt Em? Are you all right?
I seem to be shitting a brick.
Oh, Aunt Em, I'm so sorry. I've been feeding you ham and cake, and after all that sloppy food, it's too sudden.